The world is watching Washington. A palpable tension hangs in the autumn air of 2025. The return of Donald J. Trump to the White House has reset the global chessboard. Alliances once considered ironclad now seem fragile. Foreign policy doctrines are being questioned in bold pronouncements from the Oval Office. The international community is holding its breath, waiting to see what comes next. For Ukraine, this shift is not a distant drama, it's an existential threat. The flow of military aid, crucial to their defense, is suddenly uncertain. The focus of global anxiety has narrowed to a single question. Will the U.S. send Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine? The decision rests on one man's desk. The answer, when it came, was as clear as it was controversial. It would reverberate across the globe, shaking the foundations of international relations. The announcement didn't come from a podium, but through a late-night social media post. "No Tomahawks for Ukraine," it declared. "We are not sending our best weapons to start World War III. America first." For Kyiv, it was a devastating blow, a public rejection of their most urgent request. The Tomahawk is not just another missile. It's a symbol of American military might. For Ukraine, possessing it would be a game-changer, allowing them to strike deep into Russian territory. Denying this weapon signals a clear limit to American support. Ukraine is expected to fight a defensive war, not achieve a decisive victory. For the Ukrainian military, this means relying on shorter-range systems and ingenuity against a larger foe. The decision also sends a powerful message to America's allies, especially in NATO. Many European nations have stretched their arsenals thin to support Ukraine. This refusal raises questions about the reliability of American commitments. If Washington won't provide decisive weapons to a partner under attack, what does that mean for their treaty obligations? Doubt creeps into the edifice of collective security that has defined the West for decades. To understand the Tomahawk decision, you must understand Donald Trump's core philosophy. America first. In this worldview, alliances are transactional, not sacred. The question is always, what's in it for us? Sending advanced weapons to Ukraine is seen as a bad deal, pouring American treasure into a distant conflict with no clear benefit. Trump sees it as an unnecessary provocation of Russia and a risk of escalation. He believes his duty is to keep America out of endless wars. Denying Tomahawks is, in his mind, a strategic move to force negotiations. This breaks from the post-Cold War consensus that American leadership is essential for global stability. Trump rejects globalism and interventions. His decision is a declaration. America will no longer serve as the world's arsenal, especially if it risks a wider conflict. The message is clear. America's priorities have changed. The news from Washington hit Kyiv hard. President Zelensky, after months of lobbying, faced his people with disappointment. He warned the decision would embolden Moscow and stressed Ukraine only wanted the tools to defend itself. Ukrainian military plans relying on long-range missiles were scrapped. Now, they must rely on aging systems and shorter-range weapons from Europe, ceding initiative to Russia. On the streets, anger and fear mixed with grim resolve. Ukrainians felt abandoned by their most powerful partner. Yet, their nationalism remains fierce. If they must fight alone, they will. Diplomatically, Ukraine scrambles to shore up support in Europe and pressure Washington through NATO allies. But European nations lack the stockpiles and production capacity of the U.S. The denial of Tomahawks forces Ukraine to confront its dependence on a now unpredictable partner. The stakes for Ukraine have never been higher. In Moscow, the response was muted, but satisfied. The Kremlin called the decision a step towards realism. No gloating. Moscow knows gloating could provoke a reversal in Washington. Russian military planners are relieved. The threat of Tomahawk strikes is gone. They can now operate with greater freedom, concentrating forces for offensive actions. The decision validates Russia's belief that Western resolve would eventually fracture. Trump's move is seen as the first major crack in the Western Wall. State media frames it as American weakness and waning support for Ukraine. Putin uses this to justify the war's costs and reinforce his grip on power. The triangle of Trump, Putin, and Zelensky now sits at the center of global geopolitics. Trump's diplomacy is intensely personal, valuing rapport over traditional channels. He envisions a grand bargain, a summit where he alone brokers peace. Denying Tomahawks is, to him, a way to force Zelensky to the table. For Putin, this dynamic is an opportunity to bypass institutions and deal directly with the U.S. He can appear reasonable while continuing his campaign, knowing pressure is now on Kyiv. Zelensky is caught between his people's demand for victory and the shifting priorities of his main backer. He can't alienate Trump, but can't accept a deal that cedes territory. He must maintain support while resisting pressure to negotiate from weakness. The diplomatic landscape is treacherous, and the stakes are existential. Experts are deeply divided over Trump's Tomahawk decision. Realists argue it's a painful but necessary step toward a negotiated settlement. They say a total Ukrainian victory was always unrealistic and risked escalation. Hawks call it a historic blunder, a green light for Russian aggression. They warn it projects weakness and could lead to a wider war. Another camp worries about long-term damage to American credibility. Allies like Taiwan and Japan now question the value of U.S. security guarantees. The lack of a clear strategy from the White House creates a vacuum filled by speculation and fear. Uncertainty itself is destabilizing, making miscalculation more likely. The world is left guessing. Will Trump cut off all aid, force a summit, or is this just a symbolic gesture? The unpredictability is now the most dangerous factor in global affairs. This decision is part of a broader pattern of disruption that defines Trump's foreign policy. He's challenged the foundations of American strategy since World War II. Questioning NATO, withdrawing from agreements, and engaging in trade wars, these moves have shaken allies. The Ukraine decision echoes his abrupt withdrawal from Syria, leaving partners exposed. Critics see a pattern of impulsive decisions that undermine alliances. Supporters call it consistency, putting America first and avoiding costly entanglements. For critics, it's chaos and unreliability, weakening American influence. The historical context is crucial. Trump's approach is a sharp break from tradition. The world is forced to adapt to a United States that is less predictable and less committed to old alliances. The consequences of this disruption are still unfolding. The Tomahawk decision may define this new era in American foreign policy. Ukraine faces a brutal choice: continue a war of attrition or negotiate from weakness. The outcome will shape Eastern Europe for decades. NATO faces its most significant crisis in years, with Europe debating strategic autonomy. The transatlantic relationship is shifting from leadership to uneasy partnership. Trump's strategy hinges on brokering a deal. If he succeeds, it's a diplomatic triumph. If he fails, it could be remembered as the moment America abandoned a partner and emboldened an autocrat. The future is unwritten. We are in uncharted territory. The world watches, uncertain if this chapter ends in peace or becomes a cautionary tale. The stakes could not be higher. History will judge what kind of superpower America chooses to be.